This is a podcast by the Straits Times.
Hi, I'm Li Xueying, and you're listening to Letter from the Bureau. In this episode, ST's former Thailand correspondent Tan Tam Mei looks back on her 2.5 years based in Bangkok, bookended by COVID-19 protests and the return of former Thai Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra. Good to have you on the show, Tam Mei.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Well, Tam Mei, you recently wrote about the Morlam music in Thailand, also known as the rural people music. Do you want to tell us a bit more about it?
Maybe we can listen to a short snippet.
Okay.
สำเนียงแววหวานน้ำตาลนอนบนนั่งรถมาไกลจากถิ่นอีสานท่องเที่ยวเลาะเลี้ยวให้ใจเบิกบานบนพบสมภารตัดผ่านให้มาแผ่ท้องมาถึงหัวน้องพูดจาเดินลงเธอใจหยุดสมุทรสงครามสายน้ำแม่คลองเกี่ยวใจให้ลงแดนน้ำดินบางสายน้ำสาวเวลาพลา
Can you tell us more about that? What was that about?
Yeah, so we just had a little listen of a short snippet of what Morlam is about. So Morlam is quite interesting. It's very hard to describe it in one line. Firstly, a Morlam performance can be as long as 8 hours. It can have skits, it can have song, it can have poetry recitals. But what we just listened to was a song.
Right.
So their songs also, cover the whole range of romance, deceit, anger, so it's really a full performance in itself. And Morlam is a bit like what we envision for what Ge Thai is a bit like,
Yes.
It's a performance where probably the whole village comes to watch, there's Morlam season, which is the cooler months where there's breeze, Thailand is not as hot. During the end of the year. And these bands, or these troops actually, some of them are really big, about 300 people. They go on tour for 8 months.
Okay,
So-
around Thailand or?
Yeah, around Thailand. So
Okay.
they go from anywhere from the north to the south, Bangkok Central. But where it really originated from was the northeast of Thailand, which is near the border of Laos. So a bit about the origin of Morlam is that it kind of started at the border with Laos. So it's a shared heritage a bit with Laos. And it started from people just telling stories, just this kind of activities after a long day of work. And it eventually got professionalized. It got kind of made into a performance, and I asked some experts how long ago this happened. They're
Right.
telling me
Yes.
200 years, 300 years is anybody's guess. So it kind of evolved from there.
Right. And would they sing in Thai or in Laotian?
So most of it is what Thailand would call the Northeast dialect, which we realize is actually Laotian. So that's really where you can see that shared heritage, and if you speak to people from Laos, most of them can speak Thai, and a lot of Laotian words are quite similar to Thai as well. So, there's this whole shared heritage of
Right.
that area, which is
Yes,
actually very
the
interesting.
Mekong region, right?
Correct, yeah.
Okay, and as you mentioned, I thought that it held some parallels to Singapore's Ge Thai culture. The idea of street entertainment, where, it is affordable. People come downstairs, come out of their houses to sort of gather together. And it's also a social gathering, right?
Definitely. So, but one thing it differs from Ge Thai is that they're not playing to the ghosts or whatever. They're really playing to people
No
that
empty
come to
seats
yes,
in the
there's no
front.
empty seats. Yeah, in fact, it's packed.
Right.
There's really no way you can squeeze to the front. So the thing is that the interesting part is that it comes with a carnival.
Right.
Comes with food, comes with even pets, and when I was there was like a pig petting pen. It's quite
Okay.
interesting. I've never seen that before, but when I went to Khon Kaen to see this, it's really a whole event, and you can see the whole village or all the residents, do come out for it. And when I spoke to some of them, they said, every year they wait for it,
Right.
and every year they really want, some of them stay, for the whole performance, so it's really a family event, a really cultural event for them.
Right. Okay. And what kind of role does that play in the society in modern Thailand today?
So I think in an interesting way, Thailand has always enjoyed, they've known to, enjoy themselves. They know how to sing, they know how they have no qualms about, dancing on the street. And that's something I really enjoyed during my time there. And for Morlam, what is interesting is that it represents Isan culture. And historically, Isan is actually one of the poorest regions in Thailand. So I have to say, maybe about many decades ago, they were looked down upon. They were seen as people who had no... Firstly, they are quite an entrenched region. They don't have water. They don't have access. They don't have proper roads. Back then, so it's hard for them to make a living. And there were a lot of farmers, villagers. They were known as being a bit more backward.
Yes.
But that has really changed. And Isan people have come out to work, and those who return do try to revitalize Isan. And for Morlam becoming popular in Thailand, it also represents a kind of comeback for Isan. Now Isan people are proud, when they hear Morlam playing in the Bangkok bar.
Right.
And they can say, hey, that's the sound of my hometown.
Right.
And it really represents this change of perceptions, and I think that's something really, really different, when we see the perception of society change, you see that in Morlam.
Yes.
And one interesting part is that, in the last few months, Thailand has also gotten a new government.
Yes.
And they've been quite big on selling soft power.
Right.
So the definition of soft power is a whole new podcast. But they want to use certain elements in their culture to kind of sell Thailand to the world. Tell people that Thailand's not just about the beaches and, the sun and the food. There's a lot more.
Indeed.
So for Isan, they've been talking about using Morlam as their soft power, telling people that you can come on a Morlam tour, and I think in the last few years, there was this traveling Morlam bus. So what happened, it went around Thailand, came to Bangkok, and basically when you get on the bus, they perform, and they show you like the history of Morlam, which for a lot of people, they had not seen it before.
Right. Okay. So for visitors, overseas tourists who say go to popular tourist destinations like Bangkok or Chiang Mai, how would they come across Morlam, and what are some of the distinctive strains of Morlam that will help them know that, okay, I'm listening to this cultural export from Isan?
So it's a bit hard to really categorize Morlam because I think for one thing, to survive, it really had to change. So I think in the past, we could really hear like certain use of, let's say, instruments, certain flutes, certain kind of string instruments that they used to use that were more traditional. But nowadays, a Morlam band it looks like any normal rock band.
Yes.
And not some bands do retain that more traditional aspect. But I think it's a bit hard to spot and really categorize something as Morlam. But they do have maybe more modern Morlam, which is what we tend to come into contact with in Bangkok.
Right.
Even on a larger scale, the Morlam troupe that I visited, they're considered one of the modern Morlam bands. But you do have the really traditional ones, who maybe only rely on one person to sing for an hour or something like that. So it's hard to categorize.
Right.
And I think for tourists, the good thing is that in Bangkok, you do have like jazz bars playing Morlam, which is quite unusual. So you can get in contact with it. And I think people are, maybe I don't know where jumping on the bandwagon, but I think people do see the importance in bringing out these cultural elements, and they use it as a selling point. So I think nowadays it's more or less easier to come into contact with it.
And I think that this is a really valuable point you're bringing to the podcast. You just concluded 2.5 years of your posting in Thailand as our Thailand correspondent, and happy to have you back in Singapore, helping to shape our coverage of Southeast Asia. But surely you must miss being out there in Thailand, understanding the society at its very different levels.
So I must admit, it's only been 2 months since I came back, but I do miss reporting. I do miss meeting the various people. And I think in Thailand, as anyone can guess, it's quite a colourful society. Not just politically, but even on the streets, you meet very different people and they come from all sorts of backgrounds. And I had a good time reporting there because I have to say the landscape is quite different. People are more dynamic, and it really trained me better as a better journalist because I think, one of the important parts in Thailand is it's important to have that people-to-people connection. Things don't come as easily. Press releases don't just get sent out on the dot.
Yes.
So that's when you really had to make things work. You had to connect the dots. You had to really put yourself in places where you could get the news for your job and meet the right people as well. And I think it helped so much. It didn't hurt to know that everything was really quite interesting. Even politics is not so straight.
I think that one thing about being based in Thailand is I think you had a very particular vantage point into Southeast Asia. It is actually such a diverse region, but you have also sort of noted some of the parallels between, say, Thailand and Laos. So in the whole Mekong region, so much is going on there. What was one thing during your 2.5 years there that surprised you? Or what do you find out that was, to you very illuminating about Southeast Asia in that region?
Yeah, so I think the interesting part of Thailand is that its geographical location, it's in contact with so many other countries. And you kind of see the whole spectrum of issues that it has to deal with. I mean, firstly, its border with Myanmar. Its close ties with Cambodia. And then its ties with Laos, and you also had a lot of discussion about, the Chinese high-speed rail that's coming through that region. And you saw that dance that everyone had. I wasn't able to see that connection from Singapore, but I think when you're right smack in the middle of the region, you see that push and pull. You see how infrastructure comes up and it fits, like, let's say, foreign, like from China, and you see that discussion around it. And that was really illuminating for me. And I think my experience in Thailand taught me that the world is like a puzzle piece, and from Singapore, I think we see things very straight-laced, things are just like that, but when you're there, you kind of see that interesting dynamic. You see that certain countries give in, you see certain countries push back. And like I said, it's a dance.
And it's not a binary situation.
Correct. It's very dynamic, and it helps to really understand the history and where each country comes from.
Yes.
And its current needs and its current who does it need to please right now? Is it going to election year? Is it coming out of a economic crisis? And then it helps you understand that nuance that their leaders have while meeting.
Yeah. So speaking of elections, your time there did bookend this very tumultuous time in Thai politics, starting with the street protests in 2021 over the COVID-19 policies, and then ending, of course, with the return of the former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra after 15 years in exile. So if I could ask you to just look ahead a bit, where do you see Thai politics heading? Of course, we all know about Thaksin. He was hugely popular before the coup in 2006. So is it back to the future with him playing this, huge role, wielding the influence behind the scenes?
I think for some people, they do see it like a circle, like a loop. But I think Thaksin comes back to a very different electorate. This is an electorate that made their desire for change known, although it didn't play out in terms of how the government formed. But I think right now the big question I have is who is in charge? Is it our traditional conservative elite, people like the military, the established bodies in Thailand? Or is it the politically elite, which is people like Thaksin, the different political players? And I think as we go on, we realize it's quite an uneasy truth, even though on the surface, Thailand has actually come out quite peacefully in terms of the election. No big riots, no. It looks peaceful, but it's actually very uneasy. And I think we are also watching carefully to see when will Thaksin step out of what is right now a very passive role that he has. He has spoken about how he just wants to be out the limelight. But it seems like with all these powerful political figures in play, it's a bit hard to see who will really take center stage, because even like Thaksin's daughter, Paetongtarn, Tan, visited Cambodia, and she is the leader of Per Thai. She met the Prime Minister of Cambodia, Hun Manet.
Yes.
So you're also wondering, wow, that's quite a big person to meet, and then you wonder like, what are the different roles do they play in this government? To say that Kun Seta has also been doing a lot. He's been really jet-setting around the world. So you do wonder in these three figures, how do they balance that power? Because all are quite influential people.
They all have their own power bases, I think.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So you spoke about the change in the electorate during the time that Thaksin was away. In your years there from 2021, have you observed a certain fundamental shift in Thai society, where some long-held tenets have maybe changed, whether it's about the role of the monarchy or the military's actions in protecting the crown? We did see, how young Thais, students propelled the Move Forward Party to success in the last two elections. And it was partly due to the questioning of such traditional institutions and beliefs.
I think the new thrust of what we see as change now is coming from people asking about Thaksin's return, asking about the justice system, asking about what is his purpose of returning, because especially his own followers in the past, the red shirts who were always very supportive of him. Some of them still are in jail, serving out their time when they were activists. And I think they see that contrast between their leader returning and, not spending a single night in jail.
Yes.
And some who are still waiting, and have remained loyal. So there are quite a few questions about that. So I think firstly, we do see some loyalists questioning, themselves.
You spoke to some of them yourself, right? What were they saying to you?
Some of them are torn, so they see that he has helped. And I mean, to his credit, Thaksin's policies, things like the 30 baht healthcare policy, some of them still have an impact on, especially the poor. They go for cancer treatments and only 30 baht, which is like $1 something for them. And they see that really changing the lives of their family, their own lives. But they see that justice is also being manipulated in a way.
Right.
And I think they have questions. And I think now it's about, are those questions going to be addressed? Are they going to be swept under the rug? And we have a few things that we're also looking out for. So I think like Thailand, I won't say, there's this whole battle about whether Thailand's in economic crisis. But I would say that Thailand is not fulfilling its potential in terms of what its people can do and what its economy can achieve. So I think for people, there's still a lot of worry about bread and butter issues. So I think people are probably weighing, between that bread and butter and ideological questions they have right now. So that's always a tension, I think.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So I think that when you were leaving Thailand at the end of the 2023, you wrote a very heartfelt piece for the series, and you talk about how you returned to Singapore with a souvenir from Thailand. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that?
Oh, you mean my Thai
Yes,
tattoo?
that's right.
Yeah, so which is not a real tattoo, just to
Yes.
clarify. I actually got it when I burnt my leg when getting off a motorcycle.
Ouch.
So, I mean, if for those who know, you have all these motorcyclists with the orange vests who bring you through traffic. That's really the only way to beat traffic. Sometimes the SkyTrain brings you only so far. You need to get into the smaller routes, and that's when you take the motorcycle. So it was quite an interesting experience. I think first for me, I had not taken motorcycles before until I went to Thailand. So when this happened to me, I remember some of my friends around me just said, that's really a noob mistake. But what was comforting was that my Thai friend actually said that she has exactly the same one. So she lifted her skirt and showed it to me, and I was like, oh, thank God, I'm not the only noob here, right? So she said, actually, it's really common because in Thailand, it's just part and parcel of life.
Yes.
I think, in Singapore, when we don't get as bad jams, we take for granted that the different kind of modes of transport we have.
Yes.
But I think there is like, without the motorcycles, you probably can't get anywhere on time. We have politicians like Pita taking the motorcycle to get to work, So it's part and parcel of daily life, and it's quite telling, I think.
And was it our Indonesia colleague in the bureau in Jakarta who said that she has a similar tattoo?
Yes,
from riding
Arlena.
a bicycle in Jakarta, right?
Correct. So I think it's quite a nice picture to paint of, when you travel out of Singapore.
Yes.
What are the different, sometimes challenges, what are the different kind of daily tasks that you grapple with, that you have to handle. And yeah, I mean, it's nice to know that Alina has one too. I'm not the only noob here, right? Alina has one too.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on the show and for sharing all of these experiences and memories. I'm glad you had a good time in Thailand. You brought a lot to the table in terms of sharing with our readers more about what was going on there. So thank you for that, and thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Well, that's a wrap for Letter from the Bureau. If you would like to read Tam Mei's column, we have a link in our podcast show notes. You will also find a link to other articles in our Letter from the Bureau series.